I think that's been the greatest gift, and the one that I love so much about this work that just continues to unfold, is that you are at a level and you become aware of something and you face the pain of that. You deal and you process that, and then it unlocks more consciousness, more awareness. And they're just these layers. But the more you go into it, the more, it's just so beautiful, because it allows space in your body to start receiving, as you said, to start either looking in it from a different perspective or to just start receiving things differently. And that's the gold there, because once the pain gets processed, there's space.
Imagine discovering a pathway that cuts through the noise of trying to heal, to instead offer you a clear, revolutionary initiation into your most connected, abundant, loved, and purpose-filled self. A place where your dreams transform into personal reality. I'm Allura Halliwell, founder of the Consciousness Method, and it's with deep gratitude that I connect with beautiful souls who have already experienced this transformative method firsthand. They'll share how it has profoundly changed their lives and led them into inner truth. Hello, Anika. Welcome to the podcast. I'm so happy to have this chat with you.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here.
It's been such a beautiful journey with you. And I remember our first conversation way back a while ago, and really just feeling I'm going to just say it, your soul's calling in your evolution, and how dedicated you are to expanding your consciousness and to healing yourself and bringing that light to your family. And honestly, it's just been incredible witnessing you as you've transformed through the space. But I'd love for you to share what was kind of like for you before we began this work. Where were you stuck, and where was it sticky in your reality?
Coming into this work, I actually got given your information twice before I actually made that commitment, because I wasn't ready. And although I'd spent probably since my teens doing some level of spiritual or evolutionary work, this calling was just different. It felt different. But leading into this, I was living a reality full of acute pain. I woke up most mornings struggling to leave the house. I'd been dealing with grief, and so that was crippling. I felt like there was more for me, but because I was just dealing with so much daily pain, I almost got to a point where I had just surrendered to this is now my life. I almost just accepted that I was going to be numb, in a way, joyless. It was really hard to accept, because I felt like I'd done so much work up until the last few years, and then life threw just some really big challenges, and yet it just left me in this place of like I was pretty bruised.
Yeah. There's a lot of pain that was just sitting in the body, in your body and in your reality, and it was deep.
Yeah.
And I think working in that pain was probably some of the beginning processes that we had to do to kind of get you into more of yourself. What would you say at the beginning, or, you know, as you've been going through that work with your pain has been like, and if you're open to sharing what has been really painful for you?
Yeah, I think my acute pain started once I actually entered into becoming a mother. And so much stored, suppressed emotions just literally exploded out of me, and my nervous system was shattered. And this idealistic idea I had of moving into motherhood was completely shattered by my lack of coping. And I was aware of that. And so I was just sitting in pain in that. And now knowing about wound bonds, I was bonding with my children from a wounded place. And while in motherhood, I was dealing with a lot of sleep deprivation, and that was affecting my mental and emotional state. And then, so there was just these slow accumulations of pain since becoming a mum. And then in December 24, I was 5 months pregnant and he died. And my whole world just came to a complete stop. It was like someone just pulled the life cord out. And the hard thing is when you're dealt with such trauma and shock when you've got young children, you have to get up every day and keep going. And I was at a point where I couldn't really leave the house. There was just so many levels of pain because I unfortunately didn't get a reason why he died. So there was that level of pain, needing to make peace with not getting an answer and having to move through that and having to mother children and then having to leave the house. And there was just the shock of what had actually happened. There was just so many levels of pain that I had to move through, and I was just stuck. I literally saw my future timeline as just a slightly depressive woman that would just move through her life now in that mode. I couldn't see a way of getting through the grief. Although I knew it would soften, I could not see any road that would lead me out of the pain.
Yeah. Anika, thank you so much for sharing that truth of your pain and its impact on you. And I'm just wondering if you could share when you came into the pain work and you also came into understanding the fractal work of how some of the deeper grief aspects were coming through in the experience you had and you were having, but they had deeper origins that were really more of the roots of the pain, that finding those maybe was an access point for you to move through it.
Yeah, I think once I started doing this work and being on the group calls and starting to understand that we're all going through a pain process kind of allowed me to gently access that and feel okay to access that, knowing that everyone around me was accessing it, and then also that you were there kind of holding that space. And so that allowed me to move into that pain. And once I started to face that pain, I had to face deep, deep levels of shame and guilt. But I also had to go back. I had to trace back my timeline to issues and traumas that I had held with regards to the way I was raised and the relationship I had with my mum. And once I started to put those pieces together, I would move through something that I would get a realization. I'd move through that pain and I'd come out of that and go, oh my gosh, I now see why this is like this or that is like that. And the relief to put those pieces in the puzzle motivated me to keep going, because it was very painful to face the loss and to maybe face some truths around how I felt about that and how I felt about the way I was raised. And yeah, yeah.
And that piece there is huge around that putting the puzzle pieces in.
Yeah.
Which is really speaking to the depths of the work, that when we go into that pain and we meet it on a level that it maybe has not been met before, viscerally, emotionally, energetically, in a cellular way, in a reality way, we unlock levels of consciousness that have been stored in ourselves. And it's almost like we get to see things from a completely different angle, and organically, the patterning of those things shift like a kaleidoscope. And I know witnessing you, I witnessed you shift the kaleidoscope of interpretation of things that have happened.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's been the greatest gift, and the one that I love so much about this work that just continues to unfold is that you are at a level and you become aware of something and you face the pain of that. You deal and you process that, and then it unlocks more consciousness, more awareness. And they're just these layers. But the more you go into it, it's just so beautiful, because it allows space in your body to start receiving, as you said, to start either looking at it from a different perspective or to just start receiving things differently. And that's the gold there, because once the pain gets processed, there's space.
So true. And then the space shows up in your reality in a different way, which is so profound. And I think one of the things that you shared recently was about your mum coming to visit. And I know you love your mum dearly, but there's been a shift in the dynamic between you and her. And I think it's important to speak to, because there's so much residual pain that we store in our relationships with our parents. And the majority of people I work with have that pain on some level, because it's almost like we see our parents and think they absolutely did the best they could, but we're still having to acknowledge the pain in our own bodies from what we've gone through just in the experience of being parented and being a child. How has that shifted for you in your inner reality and your outer reality?
A lot of spiritual work I've done up until this point would draw me to the point of my relationship with my mum. It has always been a sticky point for me. I was the third born child, and she was very happy at number two children. And then I just kind of came along charging through, and that was hard for her. That was hard for her to digest in her reality. I guess essentially there was a feeling from me that I was unwanted. And so that manifested in me as, people pleasing and absolutely having to be the good girl and creating a personality around the belief system that I wasn't wanted. And I now know that that's not actually true, but that was my life. And so anytime I'd do spiritual work, I'd go to that place. I'd go to that almost victim mentality of like, well, I wasn't wanted. And that's why A, B, C, or D. And after doing this work and really understanding wound bonds and fractals, patterns, programs, I just realized it was all my internal programming that I was running around our relationship that was keeping me in a known stuck reality. Even to the point when me and my mum would have phone calls, or she would come and visit, I would repeat the same patterns and same behaviors and be triggered by the same things within her and never get anywhere, and wonder why there was always an issue, why I couldn't resolve anything with her. So I started to do the work on my stuff. I wasn't projecting out to her and her behaviors. It was an internal process that I started And I went right back to birth. Like I rebirthed myself. I held myself. And that started this awareness of like the power that I have internally to make shifts happen in real-time reality so that I can move time. And that was like, wow, like I actually have the power to move beyond this. And so she came to visit, maybe about 6 weeks ago. And I did a lot of work in preparation of that, of knowing what my triggers were, knowing what patterns I'd move into with her. And I did the right meditations and faced the right kind of wounds and was quite blown away by how easy flowing that visit was. The things that she would normally say, she didn't, which is, I wasn't even expecting my external reality to meet me there. I just had created enough inner safety and value to know that whatever she does actually has nothing to do with me. I got that safety. And, you know, my boys were there and they were just being their normal self and acting wild and having big emotions. And normally that would make me so wobbly around her. I'd get so scared about, you know, her judgments. And none of that. I just remained. I actually got to a place where I chose what my highest value was. Yeah. And my highest value was, how can I remain connected to myself when the external world seems uneasy, or when I feel like I'm receiving judgment from her? How can I actually, what's the highest value here? Which is one of those gifts that you've given me, is understanding what's your highest value in a situation. And so, yeah, I guess she left and I kind of looked around and thought, wow, like that's the first time I have stayed connected to myself for 41 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And you've just spoken so beautifully, Anika, to some of these important pieces of this work. Like, hearing you express that is just being such a gift, because you spoke into the sovereignty piece, that you are doing this work internally, and I am just simply guiding you into you doing this work. So it's anchored in you without the reliance on someone outside of you, which for me is so critical as we're evolving ourselves. And then you spoke to creating inner safety as the core template to then have a shift in your external reality, and then speaking into that interface, which for me is, I've seen as the missing piece in our healing journey, that we don't understand how to interface with reality to actually get the shifts externally that we're experiencing internally. So to hear that you've stepped through that and then become so intrinsically powerful in your ability to create your reality through your internal processing and meeting parts of yourself and internal safety and internal freedom, really, is super powerful to hear. And it's just, yeah, it's just beautiful to hear you speak into that, and really just amazing how you've taken the work and you've owned it for yourself. You've used it as your own path of your own evolution, and it's become yours because it is your consciousness, which is where I really am so passionate about people feeling that and knowing that.
It took a while to get there, though, because this is mentorship number 2. I felt like the first mentorship for me was wrapping my awareness around what I actually needed to do.
Yeah.
And so there is this process that everyone needs to go through. I think if you had have said to me on week 1, let's go to inner safety, I'd be like, what? That's just, don't even know what that means. I wouldn't have even been able to grasp that concept, but I followed the processes. I started to understand the content, the language, the knowledge. I moved through the pain. I created the space, and then started to understand, like, oh my gosh, it's actually all inside. It's like I've got to create that inside. And it's like it happens every single day. Everything I'm faced with, I might even get way too far down the rabbit hole and think, okay, next time I'll try and fix that one. Didn't work that time. But it's just that reminder of like, I need to get safe with that. Like that's I'm not safe there. That's my nervous system saying threat.
And then you're just like developing the safety and the consciousness. And you're right, it is a language, right? And it's we're not speaking just these terms, they carry so much volume and weight and depth because they're embodied, right? And when you go from like hearing things and kind of understanding things to actually living them and embodying them, which I feel is a really big missing piece in a lot of healing modalities, because there's so much mental understanding of how you are supposed to do something, but it's only when it becomes embodied in your own experience and in your own life that I feel like it's truly meaningful and then transformational.
Absolutely. Because we can hear knowledge, we can intellectualize it, we can actually understand it. But until we feel and assimilate it cannot become our internal and external reality. It's just impossible. Yeah.
So powerful.
I feel like I intellectually knew a lot spiritually up until the last 6 months. And I feel like now I've started to do the real work of the assimilation into the body.
Yes.
Yes.
So powerful. And speaking of that, you've been doing some life-changing work with your little ones that has opened up a whole new level of relationship and, experience for you. Are you open to sharing a bit about the work you're doing with your boys at the moment that's really applying this work, I suppose, in real time?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'll probably focus more on my older boy because I'm sure at some point I'll start to do the work with my younger one more one-on-one, but it's predominantly been with my eldest boy at the moment, and probably because he is my agitator. He is my person, my evolver. Thank you. He is my evolver. And when I started to say that with light and love, even that changed. Because if you can look at somebody in your life and go, I know you're my evolver from a dark place, it's impossible to grow from there. So I now am so blessed that he is here because he pushes my growth every single day. Every single day he takes me to a new place. And I think the main thing that I came to you with our relationship was all the triggers. It was the things that he would do day to day that I would become incredibly triggered by and not handle very well, and I needed to understand. I always knew a trigger was, an opening to growth. But once again, I think that was just in my mind. I needed to understand there was another road that him and I could take, because I could see patterns between me and my mum repeating between him and I. And when I would sit with those, I could see his timeline. And it felt, I could see a lot of pain for him. And that was really painful. I couldn't even sit with that pain. So I even needed to just sit with that pain of like, if I keep doing the things I do, potentially, how is that going to land for him when he's an adult? Like, what kind of belief systems and ways is he going to have? And it didn't feel nice. So I knew that was where I needed to go. And I look back, he's 6.5, and I look back on his, from birth, and just by life circumstances, he was faced with quite a few acute traumas that were out of my control. And how that left him was tense and anxious. And, I could even feel it in his body. He was kind of bound up, like he was just tightly wound up. And then you can imagine from that feeling in his body what his, behaviors were like. And underneath all of that, you know, we'd have these good days where I'd be like, that's the boy, there's that divine soul. Like what's going on for him? How can I help this? So the first thing I needed to do was to come back into my own world and look at how I was contributing to this relationship. What was my part in this relationship? And I realized through patterns and habits, I placed him and I in this victim perpetrator mode, and I would constantly drop into the victim mode and he would move to that perpetrator, and how that created our relationship dynamic. So that first step for me was like, wow, like I need to now sit with some pain around my part in this. And I also wanted to focus on getting him, or getting myself, to a place of safety where I could sit with his pain, because it was something I just couldn't sit with. I'd read the book and I'd listen to the podcasts and I'd think, okay, next week we're going to do this. And then he'd start to unravel. He'd start to show me what was going on in his body, and I'd become so wobbly. And I'd in my head be thinking, you know, through what you might call a meltdown. In one of those moments, I think I can do this, but I wasn't. My body wasn't there, and he felt that. He knew that it wasn't safe. So I had to get really safe with sitting with his pain, and that might not look the way the books wrote, because it doesn't. And the last maybe 3 or 4 weeks, maybe 6 weeks, he has started this process of unraveling, and it looks messy and it looks very dysfunctional. And to anyone that could be walking past our house, it sounded like, you know, a wild animal. His way of unraveling is kind of like a wild animal. And when I can sit there and just let him do that in a safe environment, the change in him after these moments is where I get my answers, that I know I'm actually doing something for him. And he's had a few really big, what I guess we could call pain portal moments, where he has spent, you know, an hour just flapping around on his bed and yelling out things and just literally unraveling. And after that process is over, I can feel in his body, I can feel his body's changed.
Yeah.
And so this is a ongoing unraveling journey that him and I have. And I realized last week there is no timeline for this. I don't know how this is going to look in 6 months. I don't have that knowing. All I know is that I'm following my intuition. And once we move through these pain portals, when I close my eyes and I envision him at 16 or I envision him at 25, something shifted.
Definitely.
There's light there that wasn't there before. There's a security in him that I couldn't feel before. And that's even just that thought right now gives me goosebumps that I can play this part for him in his life. But he also is giving me the gift of learning about the relationship with myself and how important that is.
Oh, Anika, such a gift, such a tremendous gift.
Yeah.
And you knowing the safety of that pain portal and understanding what it is, and now holding space for your son to step through that portal as an evolutionary process is life-changing, absolutely life-changing. And I've seen it with my own children. I've stepped through it with my kids, and watching their personalities shift and their identities shift from contraction, fear, unconsciousness, pain into just their true selves, because the space is being held for what is deeply laid in the body and in the energetic structure. It just changes everything. And it changes the family dynamic, it changes us as parents, it changes the whole thing. So I just want to honor you for going on that journey and for committing to your son and yourself in that way, because I don't think there's any more important work to be done. That's my belief. I think this is one of the core liberating processes of humanity on all levels.
I think so too. I think when we become parents, we get instilled with the belief system that we need to educate them and we need to teach them how to be kind and how to get along with people and study and get good careers and be good family people. And there's this huge missing piece about that true connection with your child where they're so safe that they can be their true selves, and giving them that gift. It's just, it's not talked about. I don't think there's enough value placed on that emotional landscape within a child and what that creates in adulthood or when they become their individual selves. I feel like I'm navigating new waters.
Yes.
And so that's scary, but it just feels, I'm with you. I think becoming a mum, my purpose is to grow truly secure, aware, conscious humans.
No bigger purpose than that.
And it's not easy.
It's not easy.
Because you've got to face your own stuff.
And your own suppression, because a lot of the suppression patterns, and, you know, we've kind of gone through this on some level, a lot of the suppression that we have with our children comes from the judgment that comes from trying to keep them away from the emotions that when we had the similar emotions, we were made to feel so unsafe in those emotions. Yeah. So there's this judgment and this immediate unconscious shutting down or turning away from or trying to control that we do as parents because we don't know how to come to terms with the part of ourselves that was in pain and rejected or ignored or dismissed. And I think you've been doing such powerful work around that suppression aspect that's given you the spaciousness to be able to do what you're doing, which is huge.
Yeah, and that is, once again, that process of starting to address and become aware and move through the way you were raised and those emotions, all the things that you were shamed about, to be able to, in real life, day to day, you know, real time, try and stop those is very hard. And so this is where this work has just become such a gift, because that awareness is now there of like, oh, I'm doing the thing that I'm doing that because this is what happened in my childhood and this is really unsafe. And so you're having to catch yourself in real time as well. Yeah.
It's powerful. And I think, you're speaking to the multidimensional nature of it. So we're working in reality, we're working with the trigger that's coming up, we're working with our own inner safety, we're working with the dimensional versions of ourselves, like the younger versions, the patterns, the energetic patterns. I think the comprehensive nature of it means that you kind of have a really good overview over time about the ways to meet it. It's not just a singular process where, I'm just going to sit in the room and be with my son while he has his meltdown. It's like so supported by all these other parts that I feel just come through that consciousness. Yeah.
Yes. And as I said, it's that process of like, there's no way you can hold space for some big emotions if you can't hold the space for your own. And so there's a process there of learning to, because one of the things I had to learn through this was, he would express something. I'm like, that is an absolute no for me. Like, I don't go there. I've never actually gone there. That was not allowed. And I've actually never allowed myself to do that. Or maybe I've allowed myself to do that in a really dysfunctional way away from anyone else. So how can I now meet that part of myself and greet her like an old friend, like that it's a part of me. It's welcome here now. I'm not going to shame. This is not an ugly part of me. This is a aspect of me. How can I greet this and love this? And the more I did that with those parts of me, the more he would show those parts, and I would go, I've met this. Like I can hold this for you now. This is fine. So it's an unraveling process as well, because even this morning I met a part of myself and a part of him that we hadn't gone to yet.
Wow. And you're smiling about it. So good.
Some days I smile and some days I get to the end and I think, whoa.
What am I doing?
This is, but I just can't stop now. I've started something and I can see that we need to do this. This is my purpose.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that just makes my heart so happy. So for anyone listening that is like, okay, well, what is she actually doing? How is it actually kind of set out? And what are we doing in the container? I suppose I'm just going to share just briefly that we meet, there's availability to meet 5 times a week in the group container. And then there's a space to submit homework online, but then we have a whole process of the consciousness method where you step through the meditations and the teachings and the journal exercises. So how have you found just the design of everything and the level of support to go through this journey?
So with the first mentorship that I did, I was a little bit more linear with the way I moved through it. I went from week to week and followed the structure. And then because I felt a level of comfort around the content, when I moved into this one, I was a little bit more intuitively guided. And what I love about your offering is that there's space for both. So depending on your personality, if you like to follow week to week and you read the content and then you do the journal and then you move to the next week, then that's available to you. But if you kind of are ebbing and flowing with life and something's come up and you need to go straight to the wound week, that's available as well. And that's, I think, just that it allows for all different types of people to come into the content. The fact that there's a meditation pretty much for anything is also a gift, because you can, as I said, follow through the weeks and start to understand things. But if you start to know the weeks and know what the content is and something comes up, you go, I need an energy reclamation meditation. So you go back to week 1, or I need to merge with all aspects of myself right now because I'm so fragmented. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to take that piece and bring that piece in. And so there's freedom, but underneath all that freedom is the knowing that whatever comes up, you're there. And I think that holds or helps with accountability. And I think that's probably one of the most important things, is that accountability of, like, you've committed to being in a container with people and you are there to support, but also call you on things so that you can grow. Like, because sometimes when you know, I've done courses before where things have gotten a little bit too hard, and so I just hit the eject, you know, and then I don't go to those deeper layers. So I just love the way it's set up, that it's set up for people to follow it week by week really strictly, or to kind of intuitively ebb and flow between the weeks depending on your needs.
Yeah, it's so important. And when you come into the call, the live call, and then there's space to receive a reflection about what's going on for you, how is that supportive just to scaffold you? What does impact has that had for you?
I think it helps when you something spontaneous has come up or something acute's come up and you're unsure what the next piece is. And so jumping on the call and just sharing that point of stickiness allows you to find that piece and put it in, get off the call, and then move through that. And sometimes, not that you can't do it by yourself, but you might be caught up in a lot of pain or caught up in your head, and just jumping on the call and receiving that insight, it just brings that clarity of like, right, this is the direction I need to go in. And there's that next piece, there's that next part of like expansion.
Yeah, no, I love that. And it's not always like, I suppose it's not always pretty. It's not always what you want to hear.
No.
That's a part of that. And I'd love to hear you reflect that piece as well, because I know that when the consciousness is coming through to reflect for people, we're often going to parts that we don't really want to go to, or doing things we don't necessarily feel we want to do because we're breaking that paradigm.
Yeah. I think the gift that you have is that even when you're being direct, it's still so lovingly direct.
I do love everybody, yeah.
But it's, you know, I've had moments with you where you've pulled me up on a sentence that I've said and called me out, made me accountable, and it's hit really hard because it's the truth. And that in itself is a gift. If you can go into a call being open, because every time I jump onto a call, if I've pre-scripted something, it doesn't land the same way as if I'm just intuitively coming on with my pain, or it just, they're different. But you're able to pick apart what we've said and go for that like pulse point. And it's just, as I said, it's done in a direct way, but it's still coming from a loving place. And so, yeah, I've had moments where I've gotten off the call and thought, wow, I need to, that was, you know, I've got to go and do a pain and fear right now. That was a lot. But that's where the real expansion has come from, the real direct comments.
Yeah, oh, I'm so glad you've received it like that. And it's true, because for me, the evolution is my core priority. So I will do what it takes to evolve. And when that mirror comes up and it's bright sometimes for everyone in the container, I think it's, that takes a minute of metabolizing that and receiving that and processing through that. But it is given with that highest level of love whilst also being in truth. And I think to be able to hold that and know that it's going to be a safe way to get the next piece, and that you can be supported to find that piece, because it's sometimes in the unconscious. Sometimes we cannot find our own pieces. I think it's just the design of our humanity. So to have that pulled out and seen, I think, is really something that I think is super important, which is why we're online 5 days a week, which I was just speaking to another woman that does coaching, and she's like, I can't believe you're online 5 days a week. And I'm like, I can't not be online, because I'm just like, we need to keep the evolution going. So it's so important.
Yeah, because there's momentum that's created like 5 days a week. And, you know, the great thing is if last week I had a really hard week and I was on, I think, 3 times, whereas the week before I think I jumped on once. And so it allows, like, for those really flowy weeks where you might just be living in the present, you may not need that support. It's always there. But then the following week you may be really heavily in a process of something and be so clouded by that. And so you can jump on a couple of times and get that support.
Yeah, no, I love that. And it's like everyone's coordinated. It's almost like no one goes through the really heavy weeks at the same time. Everyone takes a turn. Such a phenomenal thing to witness. I don't know if you've noticed that, but I have so much trust in the container that it will just meet everyone, and there's capacity for everybody. So I never feel overwhelmed or like it's too much, because everyone's just dancing. It's so great to experience.
It really is a dance. And I'm amazed as well because I was so intrigued how 5 days a week with a big group of people was going to land. And like each call, there'll be like a couple of like super excited, evolved people just like sharing their bliss moments. And then the next one, someone's just diving into something that's really dark for them. And it's like the traffic in Southeast Asia. It just like all kind of, it just somehow works beautifully. And probably one of the best things about it is that if you listen to the calls either live or playback, which I do, the amount of growth and expansion I've had from other people's shares, those little gold nuggets where someone will say something and you go, oh my gosh, that's me. Like that's in my reality. And your insight for that, you go, wow, I could like, and you just, sometimes you can just do like a really quick process of something. Such a gift.
Such a gift. Just how everyone's attuning and mirroring and growing from each other it's like supercharged from my perspective. And, you know, I was a little resistant to go into this design, but now I would never go back. It's just so potent with everyone, evolving in consciousness together. So it's really amazing. So thank you, Anika, for being part of that evolution. And thank you for your beautiful shares and your heart and your commitment to yourself and your family and your purpose. It's just been an honor to journey with you. And thank you for your chat today.
Yeah, thank you so much as well, because it wouldn't be possible without you. You're the glue to all of us.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's been an absolute pleasure to spend this time with you. And to say thank you, I'd like to share with you 3 beautiful meditations to explore your core wounding and a collection of masterclasses. You'll find these in your show notes. And if you feel the synergy to this path, know that it is available to you also.